Good morning. Good morning. How's everybody doing today? All right. Thank you so much for coming to this session early on during your NRF days. I'm sure you have a lot to experience and a lot to look forward to here at NRF. There's a lot of exciting things going on. So I really appreciate you joining us for this conversation. So we're going to talk here with Rich Stefani, CIO of Nippon Paint USA, and talk about what they're doing in their store and how they're reshaping the store experience. So again, thanks very much for joining us here today. We're going to, by way of introductions, I'm going to have Rich introduce himself. And as we were preparing for this and had our traditional, stock photos and headshots, Rich sent me this via email late last week. And he actually intentionally and approved me to put it in here. So he's going to tell the story about this as part of his introduction. So Rich, why don't you go ahead first and make yourself known to the group.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks again for coming, and really excited for you to be here. There's nothing like talking about paint and watching paint dry on a Sunday morning, so thank you. So this is about 30 years ago. This was my first retail job. Those of you that are from New York, New Jersey, Connecticut will recognize Genevieve's drugstores. But that was my first job as a cashier, and sure enough, I got the call to be Donatello. And it was 95 degrees outside at the time, but it was a really fun experience there. And on the left side, what you see is there's the CEO at the time, Leonard Genovese, my store manager, the district manager, et cetera. So kind of a fun picture. But we all come from, or those of us that have worked in retail all have different places. So this is kind of a fun one. For me, after working at Genovese drugstores, went to school, I had the opportunity to join Anderson Consulting at the time, where I worked in the strategy practice. And we worked with a lot of retailers back then, and one of the projects that I really enjoyed, which was about 20 years ago, was entitled Store of the Future. And this is where concepts where we talk about today, like digital marketing or endless aisle, RFID, store manager's toolkit. These were concepts that we were talking about 20 years ago. Some of you probably been talking about it also for a while. But since then, I left there. I am probably one of the few people that went to the wrong airport twice while I was in my consulting days. Ended up being in a grocery chain for about 15 years on the West Coast called Smart & Final. In the last 18 months, I've been part of DunnEdwards and the parent company called Nippon Paint USA, which owns DunnEdwards and 2 automotive coatings companies. Really appreciate being here and sharing some perspectives that I've got.
All right. So, and my name is Frederick Carlgren. I run marketing for Toshiba Global Commerce Solutions. So I've been in the retail industry for a number of years. This is my 16th year in a row at NRF and counting. So I know this area when you did not really want to be in this part of town. But now, of course, it's one of the most interesting and cool parts of the city with what they're doing out at Hudson Yards. So how many of you have been here at NRF for over 10 years? We've got, quite a few of you. How many is it your first NRF? Actually, quite a few more. Fantastic. Well, this is a fantastic show, so we're excited again about sharing some of our experiences here. But Rich, why don't you tell us a little bit more about who DunnEdwards is, first of all?
Right, so we're a Southwest-based paint manufacturer and retailer. So our focus is what we call architectural coatings. What that means is exterior paint and interior paint. The company's almost 100 years old. We've got 140 stores, and I can't even count the tens of thousands of possibilities of paint colors that we might have to make sure that every customer exactly what they want gets their product.
All right. And Toshiba, we have been in the retail industry for close to 50 years as well. A lot of different focus areas within the store, from point of sale, self-checkout, and self-service solutions, all the way to services. And we do serve customers all around the world, so we'll be sharing some of that experience with you here as well, and welcome you to join us for further conversations in our booth too. So one of the reasons why we wanted to invite Rich to this conversation is because, as you can expect, we've been working together. And when we did some work together last year around how to reconfigure and think about point of sale and the role of point of sale within a store, ultimately it is about what is that customer experience, right? That's the kind of the leading indicator for what you should do, right? And how you should think about the application of technology. And so that's really where we're gonna focus, right? So let's start with thinking about what is a store, right? And when we did some other work together last fall, we did a webinar together. So all of you will be receiving links to that webinar as well. And we talked about a store as really a hub of experience, convenience, and service. So tell me, how's the concept of a store evolving? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, what's fascinating is those of you that have worked within retail for many years, it's changed, right? And it continues to change. You think back to 20, 30 years ago where the focus was really, I'm a customer, I'm walking into the store, I don't know what I want, can you help me get that? So this is back in the days, we used Genevieve's drugstores as an example, right? There was someone that could help with the cosmetics area. I didn't know, if a shopper needed to know exactly what they were going to get. That then shifted to, as information and technology started taking place, and now all of a sudden we have information on our phones, on our computers, etc. Now all of a sudden it's, I know what I want, you don't need to bother me, I'm just walking in the store, let me do my thing. So the Circuit City model where there's that comfort and attention moves more to, let's say, the Best Buy type of model. But I think what's happening now is it's shifting again where I know what I know, you should know what you know, and you need to be able to answer the questions that I don't know or that I can't find online. So it kind of shifts. Now the challenge for us from a retail side is how do you hire people that have a tremendous amount of information in an industry where we have so much turnover, right? We're always competing with everyone else, especially in hot markets. So it's really definitely a challenge, but the information sharing between customer and retail is really increasing.
So I'd like to ask you, Rich, if you've seen any, interesting store experiences. And before we, came on stage, we were talking about some of the ones here in the city, right? Not to mention just Hudson Yard, but if you've been to Restoration Hardware or the Starbucks Roastery, and there's a lot of examples here in New York of some stores that are doing some really interesting things. And I was in a presentation with Steve Dennis yesterday talking about this collapse of the middle as well, and retailers either looking to see how do we become more competitive, more, on the price kind of side, more efficient as retail versus delivering better experiences. And so, what are some examples that you've seen that you think really exemplify that?
Yeah, there's two that I can think of. The one so my parents are immigrants from Italy. I like to think that I can cook pretty good and went pretty well. When I went to visit my sister a few years ago, I had pasta carbonara. Now, someone that knows how to make pasta carbonara knows that you got to use pecorino cheese, and also it's guanciale. It's a special type of meat. Now, you can't find that in Los Angeles very easily, and so I decided to check out Italy. Now, I know there's an Italy out here in New York. I've been to the one in Chicago. If you like Nutella, stay away, because they got like a Nutella bar over there. It's just scary. But the experience that I had in Los Angeles at the Italy store, I was so impressed with, because you're there in the morning hours, no problem. There's espresso machines. You can have a snack, lunch. The restaurants are using the foods, the pastas that they're selling you in there to purchase. Hey, I can bring the gnocchi back for my family. If you go in the evening, they got the gelato, they got the cannolis on the lower level. And I just found the experience to be completely delightful. Sure enough, they had all the ingredients, so I could make that fantastic pasta carbonara, which my sister said came out pretty good when she came to visit. There's another company called Perch that I went to the San Diego store, and you walk in and the first thing that they say is, would you like an espresso? And you're walking around the store, you're testing out the faucets and everything. They're cooking sliders on the grill. Oh, do you like this grill? Yeah, here's a apple bacon slider. The experience was just world class. And so I think that those kinds of experiences and differentiation that we can bring to our businesses, especially in retail, are so critical.
So being Swedish, I'm kind of jealous a little bit. I don't think there's a Swedish version of that in New York, but that'd be interesting. So what about the evolution of stores, right? Traditionally, it's kind of been the store, it's a point of sale transaction. You go in, you get what you need, you get out. But stores really are evolving when we talked about experience, convenience. Where do you see, it varies by segment, I realize, but your point of view in terms of how things are evolving and what the store is becoming?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when you think about all the data that we have available to us now, right? My last company, we were pulling weather data from airports so that we knew exactly what the weather was at every store location throughout the US over time. And now I could say, here's why I didn't sell as many pumpkins on this particular day. When you think about that type of information and the data, the key is how do you use that to transform your retail business? Are you going to have the same format, and is that same format going to work in every location? I think the answer is going to be no. And I was thinking back to my last company where, if you have a grocery chain in Costa Mesa that's 80% Caucasian, over 40, no kids, do you merchandise that store the same way that you do the Coachella store, which is 95% Hispanic, large families? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think what's going to take effect is demographics, geographical location, right? Do I open the San Francisco store? Is it the same size that I have in my Albuquerque, New Mexico? Probably not. Do I have a smaller tiered segment of items where I have a larger assortment at some of the larger stores? So I think we're going to have to be flexible in terms of format. The good news is I think technology is going to help us out in terms of getting those different footprints and making it easy enough that we can change around, that we're not stuck with something and then it's every few years we're refreshing the store.
So I'll have you explain this photo as well, but part of what we discussed is that interaction with our customer or with your customers and how you understand them. So what do you do to really understand who your customer is and what makes them unique in the experience that they're looking for?
Yeah, so again, paint, right? Everyone loves paint. Well, we're there when you need us. One of the challenges is, well, what can I do with paint? So, this is our Hermosa Beach store. So I live in Hermosa Beach in California. And we had this, you can see, right? It was a big white board there. It's right by a restaurant. Every time you're driving along PCH, Pacific Coast Highway, you'd come across and see this white board. And one of the things that we thought about was, let's bring in an artist to use DunnEdwards paints to create a beautiful mural that can reflect our brand. And now customers say, oh, that's what they do. Okay. Because if you're not from Southern California, you might not know what DunnEdwards is. And you might not walk in. You might go to a bigger box supplier of paint. So this was kind of a great experience because it sort of incorporated the culture. In this case, Hermosa Beach. It's surfing and all kinds of beach activities, volleyball, you name it. And so this artist created this beautiful mural reflecting all of the paints in a way to engage our customers locally.
Okay. So, so what do you, this is an exterior example, kind of showing off what the brand can do. If you talk about the in-store experience itself, what are some of the things you're doing to try to capture and create that same level of interaction and engagement based on who your customers are? Because you have quite a diverse set of customers, from contractor to individuals.
Right. So our customer segment's really two. It's 90% contractors. So these are the folks like Stefani's Painting Company. And then there's 10% that are households. So these are folks like all of us that are walking in this store saying, hey, you know what, I'm thinking about painting my bathroom. I don't know what color to get, and I don't really know what works well with this type of tile material. So one of the things that DunnEdwards did was it decided, you know what, we've got to be able to capture sales and revenue from both customers, but they're entirely different experiences in the store. And so for the contractor, it's speed, right? I want to come in, I placed my order, I got 5-gallon containers of paint. But for the household, I'm not sure what I need. And so we brought in trained designers that are brilliant in terms of color matching, which you guys can laugh. I'm colorblind, so I work for a paint company. That's kind of funny. But even I need that. And I did have a funny story. I don't know if we have time for me to share it, but I'll have to ask you if we do.
Go for it.
All right. So one of my experiences, we'll just say at a larger big box provider of paint. I was repainting my bathroom, and there's a color called, I think you would say taupe. I thought it was top. Yeah, it was taupe, and I didn't know. So I went in this mass company, which I actually worked with for a few years, and I said, I need the color taupe. And sure enough, they spun it up, and I'm looking at the end, and it's this purple, dark color. I'm going, oh, I guess that's what, because the contractor said, hey, Rich, why don't you put taupe in there? So I guess that's what he meant. So I got home, the painter painted my bathroom in this purple violet, I think it was purple violet color, and the contractor comes back in, and he starts laughing at me. What? This isn't taupe? What are you talking about? And he's taking pictures because he wants to show all of his friends the genius Rich painted everything wrong. And turns out that taupe, in his sense, was this light brown color, not this purplish red color. So I had to repaint it. Now, you fast forward, I started at DunnEdwards, and I went in the store and I said, yeah, here's a picture of the exterior wall of my house. I need the paint. And the manager's there, he's like, well, I need a little bit more here, and you got to worry about the sheen, and he starts walking me through all these ideas about the color, making sure I know exactly what I'm getting. And that was the difference, right? And so how we treat those customers, it really depends. And within retail, that's something that I think we all know, being able to understand our customers.
Absolutely. And one of the, let's see, there we go. Too far. Okay. One of the other things that when we think about this digital, or this journey, this digital mindset, right? It's the experience that the customer has with the DunnEdwards brand starts from all kinds of devices for all kinds of reasons. The store is just part of that experience. As to your point, the reason people come to the store, where the store experience is in terms of that end-to-end journey can be quite different. So, how do you see technology from a store perspective supporting the fact that it's really not the standalone experience? It's part of that overall end-to-end journey of initial design ideas to how they're going to go execute that project. So what role does technology play in that?
Yeah, so the project that we did last year, which I'm a customer it's been 8 months and I haven't had a single register. So we put in TCX 800s in all of our stores. The reason why we did that was what we were encountering was we had older hardware in there running our point of sale. Our point of sale, highly customized, which had lots of steps and effort to process through. So we put in the TCX for a number of different reasons. One was speed. Solid state disk, even with the point of sale, all of a sudden everything's going faster. Now you think about it from a customer perspective, folks are walking in and they see 4 or 5 folks in line. When you're ordering paint, it's kind of like ordering a pizza. It's not like I just bring up the product to the front. It's, okay, what color do you want? Do you want it shiny? And what specifics, what particular shade, et cetera, what type of paint. So there's lots of steps in that process, kind of like a pizza, when you're ordering paint. And that can take a lot of time at the register. The TCX, what we saw as a great solution for us, not only at the register, because I can flip the screen around, now it can be a marketing communications message. So now I can engage my customers with information while they're waiting. Another thought that we had is we have a charge program. Some of you probably do, or a credit program. So I can use the touch screen for folks to sign up. And then we're already exploring ideas in terms of will call capabilities. Also, buy online, pick up at the store, mobile technology. So different ways to interact with customers, leveraging technology to do what? To make it efficient, fast, get the customers in there and out, and to really reduce the lines that is obviously so frustrating for us as customers when we're in stores.
So how do you see that evolving, right? When that traditional checkout wrap, obviously you have a lot of products and you need some space for that, but you do have people like contractors who, they already have the project defined, they know exactly how many cans of paint or other materials they need, they've already ordered it, and they really just want to come and pick it up. How is that experience going to shape where you and how you use technology over the next couple of years?
Yeah, so I'm really proud of this as far as DunnEdwards, because I think we beat Nordstrom's, I'm pretty sure. But back in 2015, DunnEdwards started deploying iPads with payment devices in addition to the fixed register. And so what would happen is, again, it's I'm going to get in trouble on this, but so you have a long line and you've got a lot of, 3 or 4 folks waiting in line or in 2 lines, et cetera. But if I recognize, I'm the store manager and I recognize, that's a $20 million customer that just walked in, who's just coming up to pick up their products, I might have that tablet and I'll walk around and I'll be like, hey, Joe, how you doing? Great to see you. Hey, how can I help you? Oh, I'm looking to pick everything up. Yeah, we'll also do that with a will call capability. We'll also do that with maybe mobile payment or mobile devices, et cetera. And the interesting thing, how things evolve will be is setting up that will call location. Is it storage lockers? Maybe, but maybe not, right? Who wants to pick up a 5-gallon container of paint from an Amazon locker? Probably not going to work out. Somebody's going to get hurt. So, but maybe there's other ways with cameras or weight sensors that will let me know that product's been moved, right? So there's the way the technology is changing. It's all about simplifying that customer experience, their journey, giving them multiple options to pay, to pick up their products, to have it delivered. We do all that kind of stuff. And so I think that'll continue to evolve. It'll be kind of fun to see how that changes. Even in an industry like paint, these are the kinds of things we're looking at.
So good transition to some of the technologies. Obviously, most of this presentation and discussion that we've had with you is about being customer driven in terms of the experiences and the support of technology in driving that. But especially at a show like this, I think we're all going to walk around and see a lot of interesting technologies, right? And the question is, how do we apply them going forward? So if you visit Toshiba's booth, you'll see things like computer vision technology with artificial intelligence, edge computing, sensor technologies, and how those are orchestrated to deliver experiences. But from your perspective, what are some of those technologies that you have an eye out for that you think are going to change the way that you can deliver those experiences? And what are some of the examples and things you're looking at?
Yeah, so the frictionless technology is exciting, we'll have to see how that could apply within the paint industry. Again, because if I'm making my pizza, or in this case, I'm making my paint, there's a process there, right? I place the order, and then I've got to wait, typically in a queue, even if I place in advance, before I can get that product prepared for me. Because I think folks know when you buy paint, it's white, and then they've got to colorize it. So that process will be interesting to see how the sort of that area changes. I think one particular technology that I'm fascinated with right now is 5G technology. I was thinking back when I had met with the CIO at a grocery chain called Gelson's on the West Coast, and we had talked about, how was he setting up his infrastructure. And he was telling me, Rich, we've got triple, quadruple redundancy with regard to network. Now, one of the challenges we face in California, for those of you that are in California, you know this, it's power outages. We have an aging electrical grid in the United States. There's brownouts, power outs all the time. Now, you can have a generator to provide power to your store, but if I can't connect back to be able to process the payment transaction or get information, how am I going to do it? And how do I do it very quickly? And so one of the things that I'm very interested in is to see how, over time, how Toshiba moves that portion away from the infrastructure side, and maybe even can include it in the technology itself. Imagine, if you will, a register solution where it automatically detects whether or not the network's up, switches to a wireless 5G device that's already baked in, and continues on the processing the transaction. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that shakes out. So that's one area.
So let me, one other thought on that then is, you kind of mentioned examples of technologies that are both customer facing and part of what the customer themselves will experience versus the application of innovative technologies to drive more underlying operations that maybe aren't visible to the customer. So how do you look at prioritization, or how do you determine what you're going to go do over the course of the next several years?
That's a great question. So retailers, we know, right? Customer first. Customer always. There's all kinds of catchy tunes in terms of how to mention it. So, one of the challenges we face, our set of companies, and really all the folks that are in the United States, as the California Privacy Act continues to develop, GDPR obviously is also something that Europeans are facing and also facing in the United States. So it's, how do I interact with my customers with technology, give them all the information that they need, right? It's table stakes now for us to have all the information of environmental, social activities. I'll give you an example, DunnEdwards. Most people don't know that we have a gold LEED certified manufacturing facility. We are the most environmentally friendly paint company in the United States. Lead paint, never done it, never seen it. And so you look at that and how are we spreading that message? Well, we don't do a good job at it. We've got all this data and we're not sharing it in the right way to customers. And so I think providing the information to our customers that they need, providing great experiences in the store through efficient checkout, and then having the information whenever they ask those questions, whatever medium, online, mobile, in-store, et cetera, having all of that's going to be critical for us in terms of that experience. And that, to your point, is really the focus area to improve that customer experience. Unfortunately, lots of times, many of us have the plumbing that we've got to fix to be able to provide that. So I can't give you access to your wireless in my store unless I've got a good backbone that's supporting a large enough bandwidth so you can watch a soccer game or check on your kids or check your Nest camera.
So I'm going to squeeze in one other question,
Yeah.
which we hadn't talked about before, but you mentioned data, right?
Yeah,
and
data.
so, obviously, you can tie that back to point of sale as well, point of sale transaction data, but you've got a lot of data to deal with. And so how are you making that available? How do you go about getting actionable insight and intelligence from the data that's coming from your stores and tying it into, again, understanding the customer end to end?
Yeah, so that's the challenge, and I think a lot of us are facing that too, right? You're storing all this data, but nobody knows what the hell to do with it. But that's where you start talking about robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning. There's capabilities now that companies are out there that are developing in terms of how to crunch the data in such a way that ends up being meaningful. So that, it makes sense that I can show that this store didn't sell pumpkins because it was raining last year at this particular time. Or better understand my customers. And you think about it from our industry, where if I know that I've had a drop off for one of my $20 million customer, he hasn't been purchasing lately. How come? What's changed? Maybe there's something that's happened, or maybe he's shifted businesses. Maybe something's happened in the industry that he works. That type of information, speed to be able to process all of that and turn it in. And I think that's going to be an exciting time for us. It's kind of going to be a really, really big effort to figure out. We have all of this. It's kind of like that information now that you're sharing with your customers. If nobody ever looks for it, do you still need it? Well, yes, you do. Because if you don't share that information, your customers might talk about you, or customers that don't have, your competitors might talk about you, or your customers might share their experience, and it might not align to what your goals are and everything else.
Right. The other part of that, the data side, back to the technology, right? One of the things that we're talking about a lot right now is what we call proactive availability services, and how we can get that remote visibility to diagnose, analyze, and resolve issues that might prevent availability and experiences for a retailer like you in the store, right? And keeping systems up.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, especially when you think about businesses that have worries about shoplift, et cetera. The ability now with cameras to be able to detect things or transactions, or make that seamless operation within the store. I think you guys are doing great with it.
So that pretty much takes us to the end here. So I'll ask you in a minute if you have any closing thoughts, right? But we kind of talked about stores, this hub of experience and convenience and service, right? I think we've talked a lot about that evolution of store, point of sale and the role that plays to deliver service. In particular, for a retailer like DunnEdwards, it's not about that transaction. It's really about the services you deliver in and around. And when we talk about friction, it's really got to be focused on the areas that are solving addressable need, right, and pain. It's not about the technology. It's about the use case of that technology.
Yeah, and so what I would leave you with, and just from a technology side, as you work with your technology departments or your partners out there, vendors, et cetera, my best wise recommendation for you is make sure that you've got your infrastructure in place. You've got the plumbing in place. Get the hardware then in place, then focus on the software, whether or not it's SaaS-based, on-premise, et cetera. It's age-old process in terms of how to make sure that you're really ready to attract the customers. Because if you try to jump, which I have done at different times in my career, and then I hit massive walls because, I'll give you an example. I only had one access point in our store, and it wasn't providing the capabilities for our customers and for our apps to be able to find out, to do inventory in the store, to do other kinds of things. So just focus on getting your infrastructure right, your hardware, and then get your software, whether on cloud, everything else. Follow that process, focus on your customer, and you guys will do great.
So again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Rich,
Thanks
very much for joining us as well. Have a fantastic rest of your show here in New York. Thank you.